Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what I'm about to tell you is wilder than a season finale of Love and Hip Hop mixed with a Real Housewives reunion. Imagine suing Cardi B for $25 million. No, wait, $24 million. Because apparently even the lawsuit itself couldn't make up its mind. And then walking out of court with nothing but a bruised ego and a stack of legal bills taller than Nicki Minaj's pink wigs. How did we even get here? Was Cardi really out here spitting, scratching, and throwing shade like she was auditioning for Mortal Kombat? Or was this just another case of clout chasing gone wrong? And more importantly, why does every celebrity courtroom battle somehow turn into the Super Bowl of social media drama, with Twitter lawyers and TikTok detectives working overtime? Think about it. A Beverly Hills medical office in 2018, a security guard who swears she got attacked, a pregnant Cardi B who says she was just minding her business, and a lawsuit that dragged all the way into 2025 like it was waiting for its Netflix adaptation. Who's lying? Who's exaggerating? And who's cashing in on all this chaos? Tonight, we're diving deep into the trial that had fans screaming, bloggers foaming at the mouth, and paparazzi camping outside the courthouse. Like it was Coachella? This is the Cardi B trial breakdown you didn't know you needed. But trust me, you're gonna want the tea. It all began with what seemed like an ordinary day in Beverly Hills back in 2018, the kind of day where wealthy patients stroll into their glossy medical offices and security guards stand at the door trying to keep everything under control. But this particular day would later be dragged into a courtroom 7 years later, turned into a legal battlefield that had the internet foaming at the mouth. Cardi B, who at that time was already a Grammy-winning superstar with a reputation for never biting her tongue, was pregnant and on her way to a doctor's appointment when she allegedly clashed with a security guard named Amani Ellis, who would later sue her for the staggering sum of $24 million. Let that sink in. $24 million for what Ellis described as a violent outburst that left her emotionally scarred and physically injured, a price tag that sounds less like medical damages and more like winning the lottery. The lawsuit came, crashing into the public eye years later and instantly divided people, with some swearing Cardi must have used her celebrity status to intimidate a worker, while others laughed at what they saw as a desperate money grab that smelled of opportunism, more than justice. According to Ellis, she was simply performing her job when Cardi lashed out, spitting on her, clawing her face with her long fingernails, and even throwing racial insults that cut deeper than the physical wounds. Ellis claimed the scratches were so serious she had to undergo plastic surgery, and that the humiliation of the incident haunted her career and mental health. Now, if you stop for a second and picture Cardi, heavily pregnant in a hallway full of witnesses, suddenly turning into a one-woman demolition crew, the image sounds like something out of a badly written reality show episode rather than a doctor's office encounter, yet that is the story Ellis brought to court. Cardi, on the other hand, denied every bit of it, flat out saying there was no spitting, no scratching, no hitting, no racial slurs, nothing but a verbal back and forth after Ellis tried to record her without permission. Cardi insisted she was more concerned than angry, worried because she was pregnant and felt threatened by Ellis, who she described as being physically larger and aggressive. The courtroom became a stage where two completely opposite narratives unfolded, each side calling witnesses and presenting themselves as the one telling the truth. Social media turned into a war zone, with Twitter lawyers dissecting every detail, TikTok detectives making viral clips, and fans flooding comment sections, with either support for Cardi or outrage at the possibility that a working-class guard was mistreated. Bloggers spun wild theories, gossip channels exaggerated every detail, and paparazzi camped outside the courthouse as if waiting for the finale of a blockbuster movie. The trial became entertainment as much as it was a legal battle, and that is where the real madness began, because when celebrity and courtroom collide, the truth often gets lost in the noise of clicks, views, and headlines. On day one, Ellis testified that Cardi spat directly on her, gouged her face with a nail, and left her shaken to the core, and she held nothing back, describing it as a traumatic assault that deserved compensation not just for her medical bills, but also her lost wages and emotional suffering. Her attorneys demanded the jaw-dropping sum of $24 million, presenting her as a victim of both physical violence and the overwhelming power imbalance that comes with confronting a global celebrity. Cardi sat there silent for most of the first day, letting her legal team observe and prepare, while the media twisted every line of Ellis's testimony into memes and sound bites. Day 2 was when Cardi finally spoke, and she did so with fire, repeating over and over that no assault ever took place, insisting it was strictly a verbal confrontation after Ellis invaded her privacy by trying to film her. Something Cardi said was deeply offensive, especially given her condition at the time. She even proved her nails were less than an inch long, showing they could not possibly have inflicted the deep wounds Ellis described. Witnesses came forward to back Cardi, including Tiara, the receptionist who testified that she saw the argument escalate, but never once saw Cardi put her hands on Ellis. Tiara even claimed Ellis contacted her months later trying to get her to support the lawsuit, something she flat out refused to do because she believed Cardi had done nothing wrong. The jury sat listening as the case unraveled into a tug-of-war between Ellis's accusations and the consistent testimonies of those who backed Cardi's version. The doctor himself later testified that he stood right next to Ellis immediately after the confrontation and did not see a single injury on her face, further poking holes in the claim of violent scratches. The first part of this trial revealed a clash, not just of personalities, but of narratives, with Ellis clinging to a story of victimhood and Cardi fighting to defend her name against what she described as false and exaggerated claims. The world watched, waiting to see which version of the story would prevail, as the atmosphere grew more charged, the testimonies more dramatic, and the tension in the courtroom heavier with every passing word. The second day of the trial unfolded like the climax of a reality TV season, with cameras flashing outside, fans glued to live stream updates, and Cardi B finally taking the stand to tell her side of the story in her own unapologetic way, a way that only Cardi can deliver, blunt, sharp, and impossible to ignore. She repeated with absolute certainty that there was no assault, that she never spat, never scratched, never even touched Amani Ellis. And she emphasized that the only thing that happened was a heated exchange of words after Ellis attempted to record her without permission, something Cardi described as a serious violation of her privacy, especially considering she was pregnant at the time and already feeling vulnerable. Cardi explained to the court that her concern was not anger, but genuine fear that this woman, who she claimed was larger than her, was about to attack her in a hallway where she should have felt safe. And so yes, her tone was sharp and her words defensive, but violence never happened. The jury listened as Cardi's lawyers pressed this narrative, reminding everyone that her nails were short, less than an inch, and that her physical condition at the time would have made it nearly impossible for her to launch the kind of aggressive assault Ellis described. Witnesses supported Cardi's claims, especially Tiara, the receptionist, who testified that she had immediately stepped between the two women during the argument, heard the harsh words exchanged, and even ended up with a scratch on her forehead in the chaos. But she swore she never once saw Cardi lay hands on Ellis. Tiara also dropped a bombshell by revealing that months after the incident, Ellis contacted her, asking her to back up the lawsuit against Cardi, a request Tiara refused because she believed the guard was exaggerating or even fabricating the story for money. The revelation electrified the courtroom and online spaces, with fans pointing out how damning it looked for Ellis to try recruiting witnesses after the fact. The situation escalated further when Cardi's doctor, Dr. Faninki, testified that he had stood close to Ellis immediately after the confrontation and saw no injuries on her face, not a single scratch, bruise, or wound that could have matched the story Ellis told. While Ellis's attorney tried to paint him as biased, arguing that he was only defending Cardi because she was his patient and a celebrity, the doctor firmly denied this, saying he had canceled all his appointments that day simply to tell the truth, because he had personally witnessed the entire hallway confrontation and knew no physical violence had taken place. The weight of his testimony, combined with Tiara's shocking claims, began to tilt the courtroom energy in Cardi's favor, yet Ellis and her legal team refused to back down. They stuck to their narrative of trauma, humiliation, and lost wages, waving the $24 million claim like a flag of defiance, portraying Ellis as a working-class woman steamrolled by a rich and powerful star. The tension in the room was almost theatrical, and the public devoured every second of it. Bloggers creating dramatic thumbnails with Cardi's mug plastered on flames, TikTok creators cutting together courtroom footage with dramatic music, and Twitter users splitting into two camps, one side screaming that Cardi was being unfairly targeted, the other side arguing that celebrities should not get away with mistreating workers. The trial became less about what actually happened in that hallway, and more about what people wanted to believe. Whether that be the story of a security guard bravely standing up to fame and money, or the story of a celebrity defending herself against a manufactured scandal designed to cash in on her name. Cardi remained calm but firm, repeating her statement that for her it was never an incident, just a verbal confrontation blown out of proportion, and that the idea of her physically assaulting anyone in that state of pregnancy was ridiculous. She pointed out that Ellis's version of events shifted over time, sometimes claiming one detail, other times adding new twists, while Cardi's own testimony remained consistent. Meanwhile, Ellis broke down emotionally on the stand, describing how the incident left her scarred inside and out, a performance that some believed showed sincerity and others dismissed as courtroom theatrics. As both sides clashed, the jury was left with two stories so far apart they seemed to exist in separate universes. And the tension was amplified by the fact that millions of people outside the courthouse were already acting like jurors themselves, rendering verdicts in real time through social media. By the time the second day came to a close, the case had evolved beyond a dispute over spit and scratches. It had become a cultural battleground about fame, credibility, truth, and the price of pain. The courtroom air was thick with suspense, every word spoken carrying the weight of millions in damages and the reputation of one of music's biggest stars. And as the judge prepared to move the trial forward, both Ellis and Cardi seemed locked in a duel where only one woman's story would survive. As the trial reached its final day, the courtroom felt like a pressure cooker with reporters lined up outside, fans refreshing their phones by the second, and both legal teams ready to deliver their last blows before the jury would be sent off to deliberate. Ellis's attorneys tried to regain momentum by hammering on the emotional impact of the alleged assault, portraying their client as a woman who had not only endured physical pain, but also years of humiliation, lost work, and the burden of having to stand up against a powerful star whose influence stretched far beyond the walls of the courthouse. They painted Cardi as a figure who thought she could intimidate a working-class employee and walk away untouched, and they urged the jury to send a message that fame does not put anyone above accountability. Cardi's side, however, pushed back with equal force, reminding the jury that every witness who was actually present had failed to see any physical attack, that the receptionist had testified Ellis even asked her to join the lawsuit months later, and that the doctor himself saw Ellis's face up close after the argument and noted no injury whatsoever. Cardi's lawyers argued that this case was never about truth, but about money, about someone trying to exploit a celebrity's name and turn a brief hallway dispute into a multi-million-dollar payday. They stressed that Cardi had been consistent from the very beginning, insisting it was nothing more than words exchanged in a heated moment, while Ellis's story kept expanding and shifting, with new details and embellishments appearing as the years passed, details that never matched the evidence or the witnesses. The atmosphere was electric, with each word echoing across the room like it carried the weight of a guilty or not guilty verdict. Cardi herself appeared calm, repeating that for her the confrontation was never an incident, just a frustrating moment that ended quickly and should never have reached this level of spectacle. The media, on the other hand, was anything but calm, with breaking news banners flashing every hour and social media timelines turning into digital battlefields, where hashtags in support of Cardi clashed with hashtags defending Ellis. Commentators described it as one of the most polarizing celebrity trials of the decade, a case that blurred the lines between justice and entertainment, leaving the public to question whether truth mattered at all once the cameras got involved. When the closing arguments wrapped up, the judge announced that the jury would return the following week to receive instructions and begin deliberations, and with that announcement, the trial finally came to a close. Outside the courthouse, the crowd of fans and paparazzi erupted, some cheering Cardi as if she had already been vindicated, others rallying around Ellis as a symbol of standing up to power. The suspense was unbearable, with both sides claiming victory even before the jury made its decision. But the larger picture was clear. This case had become bigger than spit, scratches, or hallway arguments. It had become a symbol of how celebrity culture magnifies every dispute into a public trial by fire. The waiting game now began, with Cardi's career, Ellis's reputation, and $24 million hanging in the balance, and the world could do nothing but watch and speculate. Would the jury believe Ellis's tale of assault and trauma, or would they side with Cardi and dismiss the whole thing as an exaggerated grab for fame and fortune? Every fan, blogger, and critic had their theory. Every news outlet had their headline. But the truth now lay in the hands of 12 strangers whose decision could rewrite the story forever. And so the curtain fell on the testimony and arguments, leaving nothing but silence, suspense, and the looming question of what the verdict would be when the jury returned. And now we are left with the question that everybody is dying to answer. What really happened in that Beverly Hills hallway back in 2018? Was this a violent celebrity meltdown covered up by fame and power, or was it simply an exaggerated story stretched over 7 years until it looked like a Hollywood thriller? And most importantly, do you believe that $24 million is a fair price tag for a scratch that multiple witnesses claim never even existed? The verdict may have been reached inside the courtroom, but outside the court, the trial is still alive. It is alive in your opinions, in your debates, and in the way you choose to interpret what we have just witnessed. So I want to hear from you. Was Cardi B the victim of a money grab? Or was Imani Ellis the victim of a celebrity machine that always protects its stars? Was this justice or just performance? Drop your thoughts below, argue your side, call out the details everyone else is ignoring, because this conversation does not end here. And if you want the full unfiltered breakdowns of scandals like this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next deep dive.